Hello, everyone. Uh, my name is Corruption. Um, and Happy 4th of July, everyone. Today I'm going to do a different video, and I'm a big history buff, so I wanted to do something different today. And since it's the 4th of July, and it's America's Independence Day, I wanted to do a video on the history of the United States and a little bit about America before the United States and the United States up to its independence. Um, I don't expect this. This is a very cringy presentation. This is not a professional presentation. Maybe that adds to like the elegance of it. I don't know. Maybe some people will find it like interesting because of that. But this is something that a cringy 19-year-old put together. That cringy 19-year-old being me. And yeah. So whether you're an American who wants just some fun facts about, the United States, or you want to recall it, or whether you're somebody from around the world who's never really heard of, the history of the United States, um, but you want to know more about it, or like, you're interested in it because of the recent soccer, football, championships. Um, I'd like to, share a little bit. And I would encourage you to do research on your own. I'm definitely not an expert on this, and there's lots of different perspectives which can help you. And it's definitely not fair for me to just be like, okay, here's the information, and you got to take my word for it. I would encourage you to seek out different sources, seek out many different sources and different perspectives and different opinions, because that is truly something that you can learn from. Because history isn't something that's just like one. Well, I mean, you know, it's hard to say because it's like, I mean, they say the victors write history, but even among the victors, that there is, how do we write this? How do we so and so? And like, you're never really going to find one truth because there's so many different, perspectives to it. Anyway, let's start. So background: a new world, and why why Europe and the rest of the world starts to discover the Americas, quote unquote discover. So a new world. In 1492, after months of sailing, Italian navigator and explorer Christopher Columbus, recruited by the King of Spain, then a union of the crowns of Castile and Aragon, set eyes on the island of Haiti. I believe I pronounced that correctly, as it was commonly referred to by its inhabitants. That island is now commonly referred to as La Isla Espagnole, or in its English influence name, Hispaniola. The island of Haiti is now split between the nations of the Dominican Republic, which makes up the eastern portion, and Haiti, the western portion, and also named after the original name of Haiti. And so, some facts. A key reason that we say that America was discovered and was the New World is the fact that the Old World, being Europe, Asia, and Africa, had almost no contact with the New World, being North America and South America. And it wasn't until recently that pre-Columbus European expeditions to America were proven. And to basically put that in a time period, I'm pretty sure that like before Columbus, the last like the Vinland colonies were in like the 700s, 80, 600s, 80. It may have been something around that. I may be messing it up, but it like there's a distinct, because like if the Vinland colonies were eventually abandoned. God, can I speak? I English is my first language, and I still cannot speak it somehow. Um, anyway, um, and also, a lot of people don't know why Europe goes searching for the Americas, or searching for the Americas, because they aren't really searching for the Americas. They're searching for a route to Asia, a quick route to Asia, which they're not going to find, but because you either have to go like across land all the way to China and India and all those regions, or you have to sail around the coast of Africa, stuff like that. And with the invasion of the Ottomans, which only took place with the Ottomans invading Europe only recently in like the 14 really takes off in the 1450s. I would say probably accelerates, 1470s, 80s. The Europeans are basically like, we need to reach Asia. We need to reach Asia fast because Asia. I'm really messing this up. We're rolling with it. One take. Anyway, they're like, we need goods from Asia. We need resources. We need to trade. The Ottomans, they're blocking off our supply routes. It's too expensive to go around the what is it? Uh, I cannot think. To go around South Africa, it's a continents away. And they're basically like, we need to find a quicker route. Maybe if we, go like sail west, we can just reach, Asia that way. And so that's how they, land up in America. Because the Ottomans are like pressing down on them, and they're like, I think we gotta, I think we have to find a better route. So contact between two. I really have not planned this. I didn't have a script or anything. I have this, but I don't really have anything else except that. So, contact between the peoples of the Americas and the Old World was often risky for both sides involved. Not only was the spread of disease a major factor in death between both populations, you see it more commonly with like the Native Americans. They didn't have, immunities to smallpox, measles, uh, stuff like that. But it also did affect the Europeans, though to a lesser extent. But you also saw cultural friction. For example, Native Americans typically followed spiritual religions and also animism, polytheism, shamanism, pandeism, etc. And another thing about this is like, a lot of people either say, well, did the Native Americans, were they nomadic? Were they sedentary? Were they cannibals? Were they not cannibals? And the thing is, yes and no, because they're you can't clump them all together because like I believe that the Native Americans do not share like a language group. I believe they're actually like a bunch of language isolates. If I can remember from what we have of all the language of the Native American languages that have survived into today. And I think that it's just like you can't really factor them all in together because it's like they're not really all going to, I mean, like I said, some follow animism, some follow polytheism, shamanism, pandeism. They're not really going to like have the perfect. There's no perfect way to sort them. So you're going to see lots of different. Like there's some even that practice monotheism. There's some that had like when Christian settlers came along and, missionaries came along, they were like, we should, convert to Christianity. And then there were some that, had good and bad relationships, It's just really hard to clump them all together. So were they cannibals? Were they not cannibals? Were they, sedentary? Were they nomadic? Were they, so and so, so and so? Yes and no, because there are lots of different tribes, and you can't, factor them all in together. And basically, there was no way to communicate without the possibility of a miscommunication, because sort of like, well, you do something, you show, uh, what is it? Someone, your child sacrifice temple. People aren't really going to like that. People might be horrified of that who don't approve of that. Um, I wonder if this video will be controversial. um, the triangle tree. uh, in the Americas, there was a desperate need for labor, and while Europe often had the surplus population available to send overseas, it also needed to develop its own lands and keep up with demand. As a result, Europe turned its eyes to Africa. The region, often in conflict and full of tension, had many groups desperate for weapons or resources that could turn the tide in battle. And also, just on the home front, like, just goods that they would not have, like, readily access to, uh, like manufactured jewelry, you know, uh, beer, alcohol, certain foods, just stuff like that. As a result, these groups were very willing to sell prisoners of war from other groups as a form of payment to European traders. So you can see right here, you have the triangle trade where they send uh, sugar, tobacco, and cotton to Europe, who then trade it to the Africans or refine it and trade it to the Africans. And textiles, what does that say? Rum, I think, and manufactured goods, and then who then sell slaves, which go to the Americas. And similarly, rum and goods go to Africa. This is in a different version. This is where it goes directly from New England to Africa. The slaves go to the Americas, and the sugar goes to New England. So the 13 colonies. It's real brief because I didn't want to go into all the details. And also, this is not professional. So, the first permanent English colony in America was the colony of Jamestown, Virginia, and some of the 13 colonies also came from other nations and other states. Like the region of Dutch New Holland became New York. It's also well, it became, I believe it was New Holland, the region, in general, and then New Amsterdam. So New Amsterdam becomes New York City, and New Holland becomes New York. And New Sweden was first annexed into Pennsylvania before becoming Delaware. I swear I'm a professional. I'm not a professional. 13 colors. And yes, I am switching between blue and red backgrounds. I did that as a thought it would be neat. It might cause you some eye issues, though. 13 colonies were a major source of income and trade for England and eventually Britain. The colonies were also a way of putting Britain and Europe's excess population something useful when jobs and food/resources at home became too competitive. As a result, the 13 colonies in America in general were encouraged as a place to settle and seek wealth. The most common way of reaching the colonies was to serve a period of time as an indentured servant, either in your home country or, in less common circumstances, when you reach the colonies. But obviously, there's an issue with that because people might run off as soon as they reach the colonies. After your term of servitude was up, you were given a paid trip to the colonies, which was harsh, full of risks like sickness, privateers, etc. In some cases, you were granted a plot of land in the 13 colonies. Which would typically range from 25 to 50 acres. You might also have to sell a lot of it, obviously, because you might have a lot of other debts, or it might even be given to the person who you served under, and then they would give you a share of it, or you would rent from it. But yeah. All right, on to the 7 Years' War, French and Indian War. 753, Major George Washington was ordered by the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Robert Dinwiddie, yes, that is his name, that was his name, to deliver a letter to the French garrison stationed in the Ohio River Valley. Yes, I speak English. Stationed in the Ohio River Valley. Upon his arrival, George Washington was turned back by the commander of the French garrisons, who said that there was no doubting France's claims to the region. After hearing this, Dinwiddie ordered George Washington to lead a militia into the Ohio River Valley to expel the French stationed there. However, upon arriving, the conflict quickly escalated, and on May 28, 1754, a skirmish broke out between Washington's militia and a French scouting/skirmish party, resulting in the deaths of 10 French soldiers, including French ensign Joseph Coulon de Jumonville, which marked the beginning of the 7 Years' War. People are going to get on me about the pronunciation. Tension in the colonies. After the conclusion of the 7 Years' War, Britain had accrued a vast amount of debt, both owed to various nations and to banks within Britain. As a result, Britain was compelled to find a way to quickly man, I really couldn't write this better. To find a way to pay off this burning debt to continue its development and expansion. Past me is going to get it. Alongside this, Britain also halted westward expansion, preventing the growing population of the colonies from expanding and settling the vast swaths of land. In addition to this, Britain also passed several laws and acts without American approval that were deeply unpopular with the population. For example, the British Parliament passed laws allowing the quartering of British troops in American houses, requiring Americans to take care of them, and another allowed judges to pursue a trial against smugglers without a jury. The smugglers in this case, they weren't really sort of like the It depends what you say, like it's criminal, but like they would basically be selling, because basically what Britain wanted to do is they wanted to do this thing called mercantilism, which is basically where you want to make more money than you lose money, and you want to keep uh, you want to basically keep what you're making in. I'm really bad at this. God. Basically, you want to produce everything, you want to sell everything. It's very complicated to explain. There's probably someone who can explain it better than I can, and I would encourage you to seek out multiple you know perspectives on that. um but basically the smugglers would smuggle in like tea, goods, manufactured goods, etc., from other countries, or they would smuggle them at cheaper prices, which would obviously hurt Britain, and they would obviously fund competitors. And often juries, wanting cheaper goods, composing of citizens who wanted cheaper goods, would side with the smugglers. And of course, there were taxes. You do not challenge the IRS. Tensions in the colonies continued. At first, Americans simply protested these acts through various means possible to them. The most common way was to simply stop paying for British goods. This may sound difficult, but you have to remember that it's not like they're having to like make computers. They're like being able to like make glass, make clothes, and the British, they have to make a profit, or and their merchants have to make a profit. So when nobody buys, they have to lower their prices, and you know they're just suffering either way. So eventually, the British have to repeal that, and women helped in the revolution by producing clothes, certain goods that were produced in Britain, uh, like manufactured goods, allowing Americans to avoid purchasing items that they might not have been able to get elsewhere. And when these methods failed, or British officials tried to enforce these policies, some citizens turned to more direct methods, so to say, more violent methods, including the hanging of effigies, tarring and feathering British officials, etc. And eventually, on December 16th, 1773, a group of Americans boarded a British East India Company ship dressed as Native Americans and destroyed over 342 chests of tea, which is around 49 tons in American tons and 44 and a half metric tons. So why did the British government refuse to concede seats in Parliament to the Americans? Well, the first the first reason comes down to what the British excuse as virtual representation, which is the idea that even if you don't have an elected figure or your preferred figure doesn't win, you still surely must be represented by others within Parliament who would understand your struggle. Basically, I mean, yeah, like again, you look at it two ways, because like if that was looking at it from the British case, they'd be like, "Well, what do you want us to do?" Why did I do an Italian accent? What do you want us to do? You want us to give every town representation? That's going to be a bunch of elected figures. But at the same time, you're also looking at a a literal continent size, not nearly continent size country yet. I mean, it's still larger than Britain, but uh, you know, you're looking at the colony, which is an ocean away. Um, so yeah, that's what is the struggle, and obviously it comes down to like Britain and the colony butting heads, because like colonies are like, well, we're an ocean away, you are also in Britain, you don't understand what we're going through, etc. And another reason was that Americans would also have a powerful sway in the British Parliament that the British officials feared. While they didn't have the population of the British Isles, they would have the ability to make economic threats, and as seen before, organize protests and boycotts that would cripple the British Isles if Americans weren't listened to. And here we come to the final spark. After several years of constant protest and friction between the colonies and mainland Britain, I should have, if I say mainland Britain, that makes it sound okay. Things finally came to a violent spark when in 1774, Britain decided to crack down on the American colonies. Their first action was to suspend the government of Massachusetts and replace it with a government directly controlled by Britain itself. This action outraged the colonies, sparking uniform outrage. I used outrage twice. How lovely. And fear that Britain would do the same to the other colonies. As a result, Americans across the colonies formed militias, preparing for the worst. On April 19th, 1775, around 80 militiamen had a standoff with around 800 British soldiers. In an event known as the Shot Heard Round the World, a battle broke out between the British and the militia. In fact, no one actually knows who fired the first shot, and we'll likely never know. At first, the militia was forced to retreat, and the British advanced. I should also say this was the Battle of Lexington and Concord. I don't know how I forgot to put that. I did. I worked on this for like several days because I was like, oh, you know, I was putting it off, and then I was like, man, I should really do this. First, the militia were forced to retreat, and the British advanced. However, the British were soon encircled by a larger group of militiamen and were forced to retreat back to Boston, sustaining casualties along the way. I was supposed to say along the way, I think. Forgive uh, my terrible presentation, or not. At most, I hope you find it funny. Continental. 1775, the Continental Congress reconvened and made George Washington commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. They also began preparations for declaring independence. On June 17th, 1775, 1,000 American militiamen took up arms and made fortifications on Bunker Hill near Boston. Outnumbered and outgunned, the American militiamen, led by Colonel William Prescott, ordered his troops not to fire until they saw the whites of their eyes. That was my attempt at doing a good. Upon getting close enough, the Americans delivered a devastating volley that forced the British retreat down the hill. The same thing happened a second time, before on the third time, the British finally made it to the top while sustaining heavy casualties. And a lot of American militiamen were able to, retreat and evacuate thanks to this man right here. His name is Simon. Wait, wait. Oh no, Peter Salem. God, I got Peter and Simon mixed up. Oh my god. I was like, why do I think it's Simon? I'm thinking of biblical Peter to become son. Or but this is Peter. How can I not? Well, Peter Salem, who was an African American soldier who fought in the militia, and he killed who was a British major, causing the British to become obviously very disoriented, and I feel really bad that I'm like giving a terrible presentation, but you know what? I hope you get something from this, even if it's the fact that maybe there's some interesting stuff here. So Bunker Hill inspires hope. Despite being a defeat for the Americans, the Battle of Bunker Hill gave hope to the revolutionaries. Despite being a militia with no professional training, they were able to inflict heavy casualties on the British, hold out for a period of time that surprised everyone, including the British themselves. Americans figured that it was going to be difficult to survive the conflict, but they would be fighting on their home territory, while the British would have to ship troops from overseas who would have no experience with the terrain or with fighting there. And that's just like sort of a thing. It's like, where do I want to go with this? Maybe I'll remember. Oh yeah, but like, it left my head as soon as it entered. Okay. Oh yeah, I wanted to make a joke about like, yeah, all it takes is a farmer with a shotgun to win a war. Anyway, skip forward. Success of the revolution, because we're really skipping now. After several years of brutal warfare and conflict, America won its independence and was recognized as a distinct country on September 3rd, 1783, with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. Upon hearing of its independence, citizens across the colony celebrated. Of course, the peace wasn't a total victory. The American colonies held lots of loyalists who the United States was now expected to either compensate or give transportation to Britain or Britain's remaining colonies in America. This would put a bit of financial strain on the young republic. When electing the first president, it was an almost unanimous vote that George Washington, leader of the Continental Army, would serve as the first president of the United States of America. So tensions in the newly born republic. But of course, not everything was perfect for America. The states had really only been united in a goal of survival, and they each had differing plans, populations, etc. One of these issues was the act of representation. States with a smaller population desired representation where each state got the same amount of representatives. On the other hand, states with a larger population desired proportional representation where the amount of population you had correlated to the number of representatives you had. You know, eventually a compromise was reached, and the House of Representatives was formed as the lower branch, using proportional representation, and the Senate was formed as the upper branch, using 2 senators per state. And so tensions in the newly born republic continued. When George Washington took the presidency, he did so not as a member of any political party, but as a leader of a nation that needed uniting. Washington had several fears about what would happen to America, several which have come true. For example, while he held distinct political beliefs, he associated with no party and discouraged them, believing that they would ultimately divide the nation. However, shortly after his presidency, the Democratic Republican Party and the Federalist Party would form with opposing ideas. Washington also only served 2 terms as president, not because of the law, but because of his choice. It would actually not be until after Franklin Delano Roosevelt's 4 consecutive terms as president that the president could only be elected for 2 terms, being 4 terms each. However, the same rule does not apply to representatives or senators, which is a major debate in America today. And so, yeah, this is my very short presentation that I hope you enjoyed and hope you got something from. It is not fancy at all, but I hope that wherever you are, whether you are an American or not an American, I hope that you have an amazing, 4th of July, whether you like fireworks or not, I hope, whether you want it to be peaceful, whether you want it to be exciting, I hope that that's what it is for you. And really, I just want to tell you that you're a beautiful human being, and that, I hope you take care of yourself and, love yourself and realize that you can change the world just like, the American settlers. They changed the world just like anyone can change the world. Because these small acts can change the world. I also think that I messed up on one of the works cited things on the bottom, but who knows? Anyway, yeah, these are just some things for reading. Also works cited. And this was terrible. This was a terrible presentation, I can tell you that, because I did not put in text citations, but I don't know what you want from me. Anyway. I hope that this inspired you, and if you want to see an actual, maybe professional presentation from me on a future topic, maybe I'll do that in the future. But I put this out in a rush. I'm literally recording this at like 2 a.m. on the 4th of July. I am so ready. I am so ready for this. Anyway, I hope, stay safe, stay out of the heat. I hope, you have a really, really wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and just take care of yourself. And uh, you know, yeah. I'm trying to think of something to say, as I wanted to say, like God bless America, but I also wanted to apply to like all the countries, but I don't know anything. But like, just wherever you're from, whatever country you're from, I hope you have an amazing day, and yeah, love your country. See you.